Hello and welcome to the MA's review of the week. I'm the Advertiser's Ed Bedington, and with me I have the wonderful Chris Soley of Camerons Brewery. Morning, Chris.
Good morning, Ed.
So, Chris, how's business with you at the moment?
Yeah, I'd be honest, it's been a bit of a challenging start to the year. Probably off the back of a pretty good Q1 in 2025, but yeah, trading conditions have been tough. So we're looking a couple of percent behind last year, despite kind of price increases that we put through. I think one of the biggest challenges is we've spent the whole of the last few months looking at cost, focusing on kind of labour control, as we've all had to. We've had over £1 million worth of cost. It's added to the base of our 30 odd pubs over the last year or two, over £1 million worth of cost. And so it's been about focusing on managing labour, putting in systems to help us do that. So we need to get back to the positive stuff about hospitality, and get back to making them good places to visit. So try and focus on that side for the remainder of the year. But yeah, not easy out there at the moment, to be honest, Ed.
No, absolutely. So we're here to talk about the week's news. It's been an interesting week. It's a lot of political nonsense going. What's caught your eye?
Yeah, we can't move on without talking about politics. I'm not going to dwell too much on Labour's disastrous defeats in the local elections, but more their sort of routine ineptness when it comes to understanding pubs. There's some headlines there: 1,600 pubs lost, 16,000 pubs, sorry, lost since 2000. Two pubs a day closing since the beginning of this year in Q1. These are quite damning numbers. And you were with me at the BBPA conference. We had Kate Dearden from the Department of Anti-Business, as I like to call it. She came in, she spent 4 minutes towing the party line. In fact, I recorded it. It was, I think, 4 minutes, 10 seconds, and then swiftly disappeared. Now, hats off for the BBPA. I'm not going to criticize them too much. I know your headline was a bit damning in terms of, for the love of God, can you stop getting these people to come and speak at conferences? But it's good to engage. It's just, if they're going to engage, they need to listen, and they don't need to just sort of tout the party line and disappear. And Kate's the MP for Halifax. I did enjoy looking at your heat map, which you'd published to show what percentage of pubs have been closing. I noticed Halifax was quite low at 5.6% compared to the other ones. I wish you'd just look over the wall a little bit to the next constituency, which is Bradford West, which was 15.6%. So perhaps she's just not got enough pressure on her, really, given her local community. Maybe she's not hearing things loud and clear. But disappointing to see the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, I wasn't necessarily having a go at the BBPA. I think it's a general. I think from an industry point of view, we've got to stop just giving these people a platform to spout nonsense. To come along, talk a load of platitudes that are meaningless. I'd rather have her there and be held to account by the audience. We could have asked her questions like, why are 2 pubs a day closing if you're doing such great jobs for the pub industry? What is the real support? How does he support rate down? Otherwise, we just get that. We get a 4-minute speech of her turning up saying the pubs are really important, we're supporting them. The reality is it's not true.
It's a tick box exercise, and kind of moving on from that point, she did do the whole government propaganda about what they're doing, and repeats the same things every time about rate support and so on. But then the next thing is the King's speech, which was the next bit that I wanted to talk about. You've got this U-turn in terms of the extending the tourist tax to England. Now, there's some quite damning numbers that have been thrown out by Oxford Economics. It'll cost 33,000 jobs, reduce GDP by 2.3 billion. It's phenomenal numbers. Reduce tourism spending by a couple of billion. And you look at those numbers and you just wonder where the government are at. Saying on one hand they're supporting, and on the other hand taking money out of the system, which people would spend in pubs and restaurants and bars, and just making us look expensive, whether you're coming from abroad or whether you're a traveller with a family in the UK. It's going to cost a lot more money. And what really struck me is if you read the propaganda about it, or the narrative, should I say, rather than propaganda, the government say that they're bringing us in line with the rest of Europe and the rest of the world, and that's why they're doing this. We need to do that. So I say to them, if
I
they're
know where
going
you're
to bring
going.
us in line with the rest of the world and the rest of Europe, let's look at France, who have a headline rate of VAT at 20%, but for bar, food and hotels it's 10%. Let's look at Italy, which have a headline of 22, but 10% for bars, 10% including alcohol as well in that, and for food and for hotels, and the same with Spain. You know, if you're going to bring us in line, do it across the piece. Don't just pick and choose which ones you're going to do it to.
I think it's called having your cake and eating it, isn't it? It's bringing us into line, not in any areas that are going to be beneficial to anyone. That's the thing. Now there must be some good news though, Chris. Have you seen anything that's given you some kind of cheer?
Yeah, well, published by the morning Advertiser, there's been a couple of good news stories relating to charities. You know, Stonegate had a nationwide charity event, this thing called the Cha-Cha-Cha Slide, which they had a number of pubs, 120 odd venues, where everybody at midnight got together and did this charity dance for Campaign Against Living Miserably, raised £21,000. And I think that's just an example of what the industry does. These are the good things that we should be shouting about. These are the good things that should be leading the government to help us support. We listened to the Punch CEO at the BBPA conference this week, as well as the head of corporate affairs. And they've commissioned a study which has highlighted the economic and social value of their pubs. And they're saying each pub gives back 1.3 million in economic and social value. You know, we generate a huge amount a year, and spend substantial tens, if not hundreds of thousands locally supporting jobs and suppliers. And these, if pubs are going to be shutting down, these are the things that we lose. But the industry does a huge amount for charity and for its local economy. Something to be proud of. And I think that's something we need to shout high and loud a lot more often about.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Well, we're out of time, Chris, but thank you for those thoughts.
Great. Good to speak to you. Thanks, Ed. Take care.
Cheers. Well, there you go. Let's not forget that social value and make sure that the government is aware of it as well. We will be back next week with some more thoughts on the week's news. Till then, keep pulling those pints.